Hello and welcome to the Calmcast, a time to feel calm and think clearly. I'm Claire Downham, the Queen of Calm, a transformational life coach. I was a burnt out head teacher who finally made the journey to calm after years of trying, and I want to prevent you from having to do the same. The Calmcast is a series of short explorations, gently guiding you back to your natural state, which is calm and clarity. Just listen like you would listen to music, with an open mind and curiosity. There's nothing else to do. Now let's relax into today's episode. So it's as I was listening to my intro to the podcast this morning, I was realizing that I do use the word curiosity in it, and so how appropriate that I'm going to talk about that today. Because I really do want you to understand what I mean by curiosity. Now, I opened the when I was opening my thoughts on this. Really, I thought about the phrase "curiosity killed the cat," which is a phrase which basically is meant to deter us from interfering with other people's business, getting nosy about other people's lives and that kind of thing. Now, it's a very different curiosity that I'm encouraging today. Now, when I say get curious about your feelings, what might come to mind is something very different to what I'm pointing to. So this is the journey I see people going on with feelings, particularly anxiety, and that is a noticing of a feeling that isn't comfortable. Nobody enjoys feeling anxious. There's nothing nice about it, is there? So there's a noticing of the feeling. There's a judgment, first of all, a labeling. You know, it's not a sensation, is it? It's anxiety, and it has a label, which we give it immediately that we feel it. Oh, I'm feeling anxious. Then there is a judgment. I think that's probably the next thing. There's a judgment. Oh, this is happening much faster than I'm talking about it, of course. But then there's a judgment. It's not okay to feel this way. You know, why me again? You know, all that kind of stuff. And then I think there is some curiosity, but the curiosity is, what is this? Where is this feeling coming from? Now, that question opens up a mess of stuff, really. So initially, it might be this feeling is coming from the outside world. So I'm, for example, going into a social situation, or I'm going to speak on a stage or do something like that, and the feeling is telling me that this is a dangerous situation. So there might be that. There might be a sense that that the feeling is coming from the past, that something in the past damaged us in some way, and now we're stuck with this feeling that keeps coming up, and that's because we're damaged. It might be that we step into the label, and it's, well, I'm just like this. I have anxiety. I'm broken, basically, in some way, shape, or form, and I'm stuck with it. Again, stuck with it. And what's happening all the time that we are in this kind of curiosity is that our head is getting busier and busier and busier. And of course, it's like a loop, isn't it? I know that you've experienced that loop, that the feeling starts off just perhaps a mild feeling of anxiety. And by the time you've gone through all that thinking that I've just described, there is a really high level of anxiety. And then, of course, quite often there's a serious anxiety attack, or even what you might call a panic attack. And it's where it kind of starts to go down here is the initial misunderstanding of where the feeling is coming from. It's really close to the start of all that I've just described, because if we think we need to find the source of the feeling, then we are going to go all over the place looking for that, aren't we? There's going to be, like I've just described, a lot of different places we could look for the source. And that's exhausting, fills your head with more noise, etc. Now, the issue is that question really actually only has one answer. Why do I feel this way? Because that's the state of mind I'm in. That's the thoughts that I'm in at the moment. That's this connection between thought and feeling. That's all there is. It's actually the confusion that's causing the problem. When we don't have the confusion, immediately there's less to think about. Oh, I've got an anxious feeling. That's telling me right now one piece of information. It's telling me that my feelings my thoughts are anxious. I have anxious feelings because I have anxious thoughts right now. Now, we don't have to then get curious on the level of what specific thought is it? Can I change the thought? Can I stop the thought? That is not this invitation. This invitation of curiosity is not about that. But it is about getting curious about, I kind of tend to say, the genre of thinking. What is the genre of thinking at the moment? And my favourite question, which I believe is Byron Katie's question that I have heard actually via Claire Diamond, but it's, what am I believing that isn't true? Now that question opens up a space to look at the genre of thinking that we're caught up in that moment. So examples of anxiety-inducing thinking tend to be things like, well, the should thinking, and that is, this situation should be different to how it is. That, that should thinking. And that comes with a whole dose of, and if it changes my feeling, I'll go back to being how I want it to be. And then there's that control and trying to change what's there. These people should be behaving in a different way. Anything where there's a should in, that's a warning light. It's just a warning light. Other types of thinking that can come up are, the past and the future. The future probably more so if you're feeling anxious. If you're feeling in a low mood, it could be more around the past. So what am I believing that isn't true? Flipping anything about the future, because it's all utter nonsense. It's all made up, all of it. You can argue with me till the cows come home, literally, and I will never engage with you saying that there's anything true in the future. There just isn't. There's just this moment. We literally cannot know anything beyond now. So again, if we've got that anxious feeling, what am I believing that isn't true? I've got some thinking about the future. The other one is, and this is one of my favourites, is thinking that I know what is going on in somebody else's head. That's one of my favourites. that I fundamentally, and that tends to bring about an anxious feeling that's probably more laden with anger, really, is, making up a massive story about why somebody's behaving the way they're behaving, what they're thinking, which bit they're thinking is directed at me, that kind of thing. It is, that's, again, what am I believing that isn't true? Anytime you think you know what somebody else is thinking, you're believing something that isn't true. Now, what happens in this curiosity is, well, first of all, what happens is your thinking just shifts a little bit. Now you're in a different kind of state of mind. You're in this curious state of mind. And what happens then is, because the thoughts in the first place were what was creating the anxious feeling, that connected energy system, as we start to move our thinking into, what am I believing isn't true? I'm really caught up in my future thinking. There's something that happens in the spotting of the thinking that isn't true. Because once we start to really go, we're asking a question, what am I believing isn't true? And then we notice the type of thinking. Well, we've told ourselves already it's not true. So something happens, something starts to reset. Your system is just super amazing and has this capacity to reset when we look away from this the stuff that tends to ramp it all up. When we look into curiosity, when we're looking to, oh, my system's working really well today. There's nothing wrong with the feeling. There's nothing wrong with me. It's just, it's just your system going, excuse me, I just need to let you know that your state of mind is a little bit woo at the moment. What am I believing that isn't true? Then there's this space for curiosity. So that's what I mean by curiosity. Very, very different to what you might have been involved in the past. So my invitation, as always, is to explore this. You're not, many times you will still go off into the old thinking pattern and the old journey and the old thing that ramps up the anxiety. But as you continue to look in this direction and continue to listen, you will start to catch it more and more in the moment. And asking that question and being curious is so powerful. Thank you so much for listening. There's nothing to do now but bring some awareness to how this is working out in your life. Listen regularly to experience longer and longer periods of calm. This has been the Calmcast with Claire Downham, Queen of Calm. Take care and keep listening.